Hey, startup founders, early stage entrepreneurs, and overall business junkies. This is Ian Scott Cohen with the Founder Underground. And in this video, I'm going to do a quick walkthrough of how to use the customer discovery tracker Google Sheet template that we've created and made available to any founders who want to take advantage of it, especially if you're using our target audience form and ChatGPT template. This is designed specifically in alignment with that, but you don't have to use the ChatGPT tools and prompts for this. You can use this for any customer discovery. So I'm just going to do a quick walkthrough of how this template tracker works and how you can actually use it for your own customer discovery. So I'm in the customer discovery tracker template. You'll notice at the bottom there are 5 tabs: instructions, target audience, assumptions and validation, interview log, and insights. On instructions, I'm on that first tab. So first thing it tells you to do is to create your own copy of this template. Now, if you're looking at the template yourself, almost certainly you're only able to view it and not edit it. So you'll want to create a copy. So you'll just come up to File, make a copy. And now I'm going to just call this, my personal customer discovery tracker. I'll make that copy. And now I've got my own version that I can myself edit. So we're going to work in this new version so I don't mess up the template. Now it gives you further instructions. So this tab that we're in, instructions, is just for understanding the context and the purpose of each section. You're going to fill out these tabs in order. So target audience first, then assumptions and validation, interview log, and insights. So again, this tracker is supposed to be used for when you actually are going out and starting to talk to and interface with your potential target audience, your potential customers. So this is where we are actually doing the discovery process that we've outlined how to use our previous tools with before. There is going to be a link here to this actual video I'm recording right now. Then it tells you the purpose of the tracker is really to help you to organize your thoughts. So one of the things that a lot of folks make a mistake when they start doing discovery or they forget about is that you want to be organized. What people say in your discovery conversations is super important. And it's more important that you track what they say and how they say it, because that is where patterns are going to emerge and where we're actually going to see if our assumptions are correct or if they're not correct. So that's the real purpose of this, is to gather up these different interviews and pieces of feedback you get. You can also put in survey responses, all that kind of stuff into this tracker. It's got some key features, so it allows you to track GPT-generated assumptions, or you can just write them in yourself and map them to interview insights. We give you tips on how to stick to the mom test principles, summarize, etc. So first, we're just going to start with the target audience tab. So I'm going to click over there. Now you're going to see target audience in the top left. Purpose here is define your target audience. You can notice it says you can use your Typeform that we used with ChatGPT. Again, you don't have to do that, but that is what those who go through our bootcamp exercises use. And so the example here for, so each one of these tabs has an example row already completed, just to give you an idea of what it's supposed to look like. And so just so you follow that example along, we're going to pretend like the problem statement we're working on in the target audience are busy professionals who want better tools to manage their teams without adding more complexity to their workflow. So that is who we're focused on. So if we were filling out this tracker with that example as our focus, then you would come to the buyer end user. So this is, are we defining the buyer end user? You have a drop down. You can select buyer, end user, or both. So in this case, the buyer. You can select the age range. You can check multiple ones. Location. Is this a local concern? Is it a regional audience? National, international? Not relevant. I'm not sure yet. Gender. Again, this is aligned to our target audience form, so you can just pick what makes the most sense. Education. Again, is your target audience education, is it not relevant, or do you want to check off specifically and focus on people with college degrees or people with just a high school diploma? Whatever it may be, it's got to be specific to your target audience. We're saying busy professionals here, so you can see probably college degrees or advanced degrees are included in this audience. For income, we have low income, middle income, high income, wealthy. Again, those aren't terribly well defined, but it's just to get a sense for who you're targeting here. Then you can add in and type in additional details. So we're thinking specifically about mid-level managers with this example. Psychographics, so that's where we put in what motivations or challenges or goals these people have. So maybe they're overwhelmed by the workload, they're time strapped, they're also goal oriented. And then over here, you have your problem statement. So state the problem they're experiencing in a concise manner. Managers struggle to track team performance effectively. Now, if you used our ChatGPT template with your target audience form, all this stuff should already be done for you. You just have to input that information into this spreadsheet. So for those who watched the previous videos around that, I was working on an idea that had to do with parents and kids and mobile games. So I would come in, I would do one row for the buyers, which are the parents. So I'd select buyer, age range I thought was 25 to 34, 35 to 44, and 45 to 54. I said national, and so on and so forth. Now, if I want to do end users as well, I can just click on the row, click the number over here, and I can click copy, and then just click on row 10 and paste. And now I can do for my end user too. So if I wanted to do the kids, then I would do under 18. I can uncheck these, and I can go through and do all of that. So you want to put in your target audience and the things that we know about them already and that problem statement. This is just to make it super clear about who you're targeting, and so you can reference it easily throughout your customer discovery process. Now let's get to the more meaty parts of the actual tracking. So on this next tab, assumptions and validation. So this is where you're actually going to take the assumptions that ChatGPT produced if you're using that tool that we gave you, and you're going to paste them in here to the assumptions tab, column, I should say. So what we're doing here is really, really important. We have a tab where you're specifically listing the assumptions that are baked into your idea. And so we have some examples. Again, we're thinking about the example of busy professionals who want better tools to manage their teams without adding more complexity to their workflow. Now, that is a problem statement or a problem audience or target audience, I should say. So a couple of example assumptions we might have are, and I labeled this example 1 or E1. An assumption is that managers dislike current performance tracking tools. So we're assuming that. Then when we go through these interviews, we're going to actually track, have we validated this assumption? Meaning, have we confirmed that this is true? Have we invalidated it? So maybe the managers don't dislike their current performance tracking tools, or better said, maybe they like them, in which case we would come in and say that this is disproven or invalidated. So I can hit the drop down. I have 3 choices: validated, invalidated, or pending. I'll say it was validated. And if pending, that's really for if you haven't got enough feedback yet to really determine. And so maybe you haven't asked those questions yet, so you can select pending. Next, you want to put in related questions. So again, if you're using our GPT exercise, you should already have a bunch of questions that align to each of these assumptions. And you can paste those in here so you have them organized. You can also, you don't have to use all the questions that we produced. You can just use 4 or 5 and really just see where that goes. Then you can actually get into where we're tracking what's said in the interviews. So this column E is for insights from the interviews. So we say summarize insights from the interview log that support or challenge this assumption. So your interview log is referring to this next tab, which we'll get to in a second. And this is where you're going to summarize what the insights are. So we're not going to use this immediately. This is going to remain blank until after we do our interviews. So let's assume we did the interviews already for this example. You can see an insight that I singled out was 4 out of 5 managers said their current tools are time consuming. So what this is doing is saying, okay, well, I validated that they dislike their current performance tracking tools. And an insight I got is that they find them to be time consuming. Now you might think, oh, well, obviously they're time consuming because that's why they dislike them. That's not obvious. That's the point of discovery. Time consuming is a specific form of frustration. They might say, oh, their current tools are not user friendly. That's different than time consuming. Or they might say that they're confusing, or they might say that they are ineffective. So you got to be specific here and don't just gloss over the words that your audience uses. That is super important. And then finally, again, this is going to be used after you've done a lot of your interviews. In column F, we have a place where you can mark down just actions you plan to take. So For instance, time consuming, maybe this means that we should refine our product focus to address ease of use and make it super fast and quick, right? And so that is aligned to an insight that we've discovered, not just an assumption that we've made. All right, so if I wanted to do this with one of my assumptions, and we've given you these pre-labeled rows, A1 or assumption 1, assumption 2, assumption 3. So let's say I wanted to do it for mine. I would come back over to, this is my ChatGPT prompt from Customer Discovery. And then I have my actual conversation. So I'm going to go up and just do one of these. So here's one of the assumptions that we came up with. Parents are actively looking for engaging, educational, and affordable mobile games for their kids. So I'm going to copy that. And I'll go back to my tracker. I'll put it in there. I'm going to say this is pending because I haven't actually done the interviews yet. Then for questions, you can see I've already got my questions lined up here. So I'm just going to copy 4 out of here. Again, Control C or right click, come back, double click inside the box, the cell, and paste. So now they're all right there, so I know what I'm going to ask. And then I'm going to leave these blank because I haven't actually done the interviews yet. And so I can go through and do these for each of my assumptions. So I would go back, grab assumption 2, and put this in here, and so on and so forth. All right, so let's say I filled this out. Now I'm ready to actually do some interviews. So I'll go to my 4th tab here, interview log. And the whole purpose is to capture and organize information from each of my customer interviews. Now, we have some guidance here for you. Capture direct quotes whenever possible and focus on specific problems or frustrations shared by the interviewee. Now, reminder, you do not want to focus your conversations with the interviewees around your solution. It's got to be about their problem, their pains, their frustrations. That is what we want. That's the gold we're looking for. And so when you are talking to them, try to take down exactly what they say when they say meaningful things. That's why recording these can be great. So you can revisit or you can look at the transcripts and pick out things. There's some online tools that actually help you do that now. But getting these quotes is really, really important because it helps really solidify whether you're validating or invalidating assumptions. So let's look at the example. Again, we're thinking about the busy professionals example here. Interviewee name, Jane Doe, date of the interview. The method, you have a drop down. Is it in-person, video chat, phone, email, or survey? You can always add more. Assumptions address. So it says E1, E2. If you go back, you'll notice that aligns to my, sorry, I got this little toolbar here. It aligns to E1 and E2, my assumptions here. So if I was doing my own, I would put A1 or A2 or A3. This is really just to help you quickly understand, did this conversation cover all my assumptions or did it speak to just one? Key questions I asked. So these you would pull. And because again, you want to make sure you know what you actually asked these people. And then we get into their responses. So you can see here responses. The help text says detailed answers, stories, and anecdotes from the interviewee. So let's say we interviewed Jane Doe. Something she said was, I use Excel, but it's too manual. Another quote, I'd like to see a visual representation of data. Wow. Okay. So those are 2 great quotes for us if we're trying to validate or invalidate this problem. So the pain points she mentioned, that manual data entry is tedious. She said it's too manual, and she probably said other things too, but we only got a couple of these quotes. She also said there's no quick way to analyze trends. She said, I'd like to see visual representation of data. Now, if you're developing a software product and somebody says, I'd like to see visual representation of data, then you can immediately think, oh, maybe a dashboard is what they want. And so you can start seeing how these interviews directly relate to how you develop your product or service. That's the whole point. So you can directly match exactly what they want. Too many folks come in and already have an idea about what they want without actually talking to the customers. That's the whole point of discovery, is to get a sense for what they want, not what you want. Now, the last 2 columns, did they mention current solutions? So what are they currently doing? So this person mentioned they use Excel, and they also hold weekly team meetings to go over this data, presumably. And then finally, any additional notes. So this is where if anything popped out, if they were particularly animated or excited about a specific thing, maybe they mentioned pricing, you want to capture all of that. So maybe this person mentioned, oh yeah, I'm willing definitely to pay for a newer, better tool. That is really important information. It tells you they're actively looking for a tool, that they have money to pay for a tool, and that they're actually willing to pay. Now, they haven't said what they're going to pay. That's for later, but stuff like that can be super important. All right. They also might say, oh, my manager bought this tool that we have to use. That tells you who their buyer is. All right. So this is how you're going to track your different interviews. And again, if you need more rows, you can just click on the row number, Control C, and then paste it. And you can have as many as you need. Typically recommend trying to talk to at least probably, I would say 15 people, if not a little bit more. But that's something you have to judge for yourself. You definitely want to get a good amount of these under your belt. But starting with 3 to 5 is a great way to get going. And you'll notice as soon as you start learning stuff, it gets intoxicating. You really want to learn more and more. Now the final tab is our Insights tab. So this is where you're going to summarize. So let's say you did all of your interviews. You've got your different validations and invalidations. And so you've got your insights. And then in here is where you're going to summarize them. So the goal is to focus on summarizing actionable insights and highlighting recurring themes. So these are patterns that came up across your interviews. So you don't want something that only 1 out of 5 people mentioned or 2 out of 15 people mentioned. You really want to try to find stuff that, a good portion of who you talk to mentioned, because that means that it is a problem a lot of people have or something a lot of people care about. So an insight for our example here, just number it 1. Key insight: managers struggle with manual data entry. So maybe column C says how frequency across interviews. How many interviewees mentioned this specific problem? And here we put it here because it's 4 out of 5. So that tells us, all right, this is something that we should look at. Manual data entry is something that a lot of them seem to be doing. Then in column D, we have relevance to assumptions. So again, this is just which assumption does this insight relate to. So for us, if we go back, E1 or example 1 was our assumption was managers dislike current performance tracking tools. So we came into our interview process thinking, oh, I think or I assume managers dislike current performance tracking tools. But I don't know if that's true. So I went and interviewed people, and all of them or most of them said they struggle with manual data entry. So this is related to that first assumption, E1, and it's telling me that, yeah, it sounds like I was right. How does this insight impact our strategy? Maybe it forces you to prioritize a certain pain point or pivot. So we want to prioritize automation features in product design. So if they don't like manual data entry, we want to automate. So again, we're aligning our product development, our solution development directly to the insight from discovery. And then next question, these are next steps, I should say. This is where you decide, okay, well, you've got this insight, so what are we doing next? Maybe we want to draft a new initial product prototype that we can actually get feedback from. So we talked to these people. They said that they don't like manual data entry. So let's draft a prototype. Maybe we can just do screenshots or designs and take it right back to them and say, hey, you mentioned you didn't like manual data entry. Tell us about how this looks and how, what do you think about this layout, this design, this user journey, this flow, whatever it may be. You really just want to make sure that you're connecting an insight to a next step. Too often times, people go out and they do interviews with a bunch of people, and then they don't actually change their strategy or their plan in any way, which is just a complete waste of time. And it's a one-way ticket to failure. So you want to make sure that you actually define next steps. Another example of an insight, so managers value visual dashboards. 3 out of 5 mentioned that. It would align to the example 2 assumption. So obviously an impact could be you include dashboards in your marketing materials. Notice this isn't just product development. This says marketing materials too. If they value these things, when you get to the marketing part of your journey, you got to be able to catch their attention and speak to the things that they care about. And if they all really want this, then yeah, you should probably incorporate it into marketing and not just the product. And so a next step could be you can test the dashboard design with potential customers. You could present them a few different versions of a dashboard. Again, you can just do wireframes, little drawings, as opposed to actually building the product. And that can save you tons of time and money. So that is the personal customer discovery tracker and how you can use it. Again, it is not comprehensive, but it is definitely organized. and helps you kind of follow along and keep things organized, and keeps you motivated because you'll start learning stuff. And the more stuff you learn, the more you're going to want to do more discovery. Discovery is a never-ending process that you definitely do not want to skimp on in the beginning. I would say that it's the most important thing you can do in the beginning, and then you have to do it throughout your entire business. The best businesses have continuous discovery all the time. And so you've got instructions, target audience, your assumptions and validation, interview log, and insights. So hopefully this tracker is useful. If you're using our ChatGPT templates and our target audience form, then this aligns directly with that and should be a great tool for you as you start doing your interviews. Best of luck with the interviews, and hopefully this will help you get them done and develop an amazing product and business.